Eat up, guys. None of this animal goes to waste.
What's up, guys? Boy, Benny. Have you ever been lied to by somebody you trust? Then you lose all trust in that person, probably never gain it back, right? You know you're being lied to as well. Like when you're being lied to, you kind of know it. You feel it deep in your bones. You can tell because, well, that's why lie detectors work. There's something spiritual about it, and there's something physical about the phenomenon of lying. Your autonomic nervous system actually kicks into high gear, and your body begins to sweat, your heart rate increases. There's a physical response to telling a lie. That's why people know when you're lying, right? Why you shouldn't lie. You should just do what we do on this channel and practice brutal truth instead of lying. It costs you something to lie. It costs your soul something to lie. The American public knows when they're being lied to. This is why the vast majority of the American public do not trust corporate media. The American public is really smart. Look at this. This is the trust in corporate media from the 1970s to 2023, which is when this article was written. American trust in media has fallen to a historic low, according to a new poll from Gallup. Only 32% of the population reports having a great deal or a fair amount of confidence in the media reporting. And why is that exactly? Well, the reason why is because we've been lied to again and again and again and again. This chart breakdown shows that independents, Republicans, and even Democrats do not believe the media. Pretty remarkable. Only 50% of Democrats actually believe the media. Ladies and gentlemen, that's because they lie to you. The media will tell you about how there's no voter fraud or how Republicans must commit to accepting all of the results of the election, no matter what. Well, that's an insane thing to say, no matter what. What you're seeing right here is election fraud cases. You're seeing thousands and thousands and thousands of election fraud cases from the Heritage Foundation, which catalogs all of the cases of election fraud. In every state, in virtually every county, there is somebody who's committing election fraud. Criminal conviction, diversion program. What are they doing? Duplicate voting, false registrations, duplicate voting, ballot petition fraud. There are so many cases of election fraud across the country, it's hard to actually catalog all of them. Election fraud's a real thing. It's an actual threat in our nation. It's something that's real. It's something that's a danger to our country where people are allowed to vote. And with that vote comes responsibility and the security of that system. No system is perfect, but just like you don't want cars to veer off the road and kill somebody if you can avoid it, you don't want people to vote fraudulently. So these are systems that we have to perfect, and we need to talk about the problems in these systems. Shockingly, there is only one group of people, the press, who continue to lie to you about voter fraud. And they continue to bring up Republicans of fame, right? Marco Rubio, as of late, Ted Cruz, onto corporate media, and then browbeat them about how there's no voter fraud in the country. They're lying to you. This is why we don't trust the media. Check this out. Senator Ted Cruz, CNN host, clash sharply over voter fraud, accepting election results. This is a ridiculous question. You should ask Hillary Clinton this, says Ted Cruz. In what is the best exchange I've possibly ever seen on CNN, Ted Cruz goes on an absolute blistering flamethrower tirade against Kaitlan Collins, the dingbat who got completely destroyed by Donald Trump in the live Donald Trump interview, you might recall from a year ago. Ted Cruz doing God's work on CNN. Check this out.
You were the first senator to object to the votes. Mm-hmm. In 2024, will you certify the election results? Do you plan to object, or will you accept the results regardless of who wins the election?
So, Kaitlan, I got to say, I think that's actually a ridiculous question.
It's a yes or no question, though.
No, it's not. Let me explain why it's a ridiculous question. It's not a question. You've ever asked a Democrat that?
Of course.
What Democrat?
But what Democrats?
Hold on a second. What Democrats challenge it?
What Democrats? I know. I've been down this road many times.
But
no Democrat. You cannot compare the two situations. We have talked about that. We've seen the audio of that when they protested on the Senate floor.
Hold on a second.
But has you ever had a sitting president who refused to facilitate the peaceful transition of power, refused to acknowledge that his successor won the presidency?
So, A, we did have a peaceful transfer of power. I was there on January 20th. I was there on the swearing in.
Barely.
B.
Barely? What is this? absolute embarrassment.
If you look at in 2000, Democrats went to the Senate, or 2001, Democrats went to the Senate floor and objected to George W. Bush. In 2004, they went and objected.
And what did the president do?
In 2016, Democrats went and objected to Donald Trump. And so... Look,
and what happened in 2016? Because I remember a guy named Joe Biden was vice president, and he went to the Senate floor and certified the votes.
So do you want...
Am I wrong?
So you're asking, will you promise no matter what to agree an election is illegitimate regardless of what happens? And that would be an absurd thing to claim. Like, we have an entire election law system that people challenge elections. Elections get overturned. Voter fraud gets proven. That happens all the time. And the media engages in this weird game post Donald Trump that you insist no voter fraud has ever existed. Why does every state have laws in place to challenge voter fraud if it occurs?
The media
Why do you have election challenges?
This isn't a game. There was no widespread voter fraud.
You only ask Republicans that. Because
it was Republicans who tried to block the transition of power. You have to acknowledge that.
So
we've never seen it on a scale of what happened in 2020, and we've never seen the president refuse. He wouldn't even let Joe Biden get classified briefings at the beginning. I recall that.
So
my question for you again, free and fair election, will you accept the results regardless of who wins?
Look, if the Democrats win, I will accept the result, but I'm not going to ignore fraud regardless of what happens.
But was there fraud in 2020?
Of course there was fraud in 2020.
No, there wasn't, and you still objected.
You know for a fact there was zero voter fraud. Really? What's your basis for that? Show me your evidence.
We've spoken with Governor Kemp. They did 3 hand recounts in the state of Georgia. The director of CISA said that it was the safest, most legitimate election.
But you're saying zero voter fraud occurred. That's what you just said.
Nothing that would have changed the outcome of that election.
Okay, but that's a different statement.
But no, it's not. Because
yes,
if it wouldn't have changed
you said there was no voter fraud.
There was no voter fraud that would have changed the outcome of the election, and you know that, Senator.
So what I know is that what I stood on the Senate floor and objected, what I called for, I'll tell you, I wrestled with what to do in that circumstance. And the reason I wrestled with it is because I think there was significant voter fraud in 2020. And
you wanted the 10-day commission, I know. But was there voter fraud that would have changed the outcome of the election? But do you know why
I wanted a 10-day commission? Because I tried to look. I'm a Supreme Court litigator. I argue cases in front of the Supreme Court.
I know.
I tried to look through history and precedent. And the best precedent I could find was the election of 1876. 1876 was between Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel Tilden. And what happened there were serious allegations of voter fraud, and Congress didn't throw its hands up and say, you know what? CNN demanded that I accept the results no matter what, so ignore the fraud. I got to go. But hold on. What did Congress do in 1876? What did Congress do in 1876?
How did the president handle it?
What did Congress do in 1876?
Senator, I have to know, you can't answer yes or no to this question.
I'm asking a question. What did Congress do in 1876?
You can't answer yes or no to this question. And Republicans,
can you answer my question? Why are you refusing to answer my question?
I'm conducting the interview with all due respect, Senator. And let me ask you, it's Republicans have twisted themselves in knots. It's just a yes or no question.
I'm not twisting myself. I'm answering your question. You just don't like my answer.
And what's your answer? Is it yes or is it no?
So in 1876, what Congress did is it appointed an election commission. It consisted of 15 people, 5 House members, 5 senators, 5 Supreme Court justices. The election commission was charged with studying the evidence and making a determination of what voter fraud occurred, and that determined the winner. And what I called for in 2020 was to do the same thing, appoint an election commission, and 11 senators joined me.
Senator, with all due respect, after it had been thrown out of many courts, after the Attorney General Bill Barr, because there was no basis for those court cases.
No, so that's actually
Senator,
not.
With all due respect,
you asked me a question. Do you want me to answer it?
And you didn't answer the question.
Yes, I did.
Court cases were thrown out.
Hold on a
second. The Attorney General said there was no widespread fraud. You're not clearly answering the question. I want to thank you for that.
I'm answering every question. I think the country would have been a lot better off with a determination of what evidence of voter fraud there was that occurred, and instead the media didn't want to hear it and insist voter fraud never occurs. You ought to go back and look at the Carter-Baker Commission. It was
the Attorney General, and my question was about
it was the media. It was CNN that relentlessly pushed that propaganda. And by the way,
never propaganda? That there was no widespread fraud in the election?
That voter fraud doesn't exist, and anyone who says it does is wearing a tinfoil hat. That is propaganda. And by the way, you never asked Hillary Clinton this. You never asked Stacey Abrams this. You never asked Al Gore this.
With all due respect,
and every
Senator,
one of them said the Republicans who won were illegitimate.
I haven't had any of them on my show. We'll talk to them. But I don't remember there being a president who was refusing to turn over the transition of power and facilitate it.
And Trump didn't either. Joe
My
Biden
question was
became
about 2024.
president.
You did not answer.
Let me say a final point
Senator
for you. You said they haven't come.
Thank you very much, Senator Ted Cruz.
My opponent, Colin Allred, hasn't either. He ought to come to your show.
Senator Ted Cruz, no answer to that question. Thank you.
Watching that, I wanted to like stop and interrupt, but I don't want this to be a 50-minute video. I want to stop and interrupt like 17 different times. You're a senator. We know Ted Cruz's people. I'm going to call him after this. You're a senator, and you shouldn't be spoken to like that on TV. Kaitlan Collins is just a dingbat in a little pink suit with a bunch of fancy lights. Take away the fancy lights and cameras and makeup lady, and she's nothing. And Senator Ted Cruz has been a senator, I think, reelected 3 or 4 times. He's a pretty senior senator, probably the most famous Republican senator, you could say arguably, in the Senate. And a lot of people know Ted Cruz. He's a staple, ran for president a few times, right? Like, why would you allow yourself to be talked to like that? You shouldn't allow yourself to be talked to like that. Don't degrade yourself. Don't go on CNN. This is a precursor, of course, of what you're going to see during the CNN debate with Joe Biden. They're going to try and get Donald Trump all pissed off. They're trying to get him all angry and stuff, and by interrupting him and everything. Why would you allow so many interruptions? Why would you not allow so many people to, like they never do? You never see this on the you never see this on the left, where somebody gets interrupted while they're trying to make a point. I counted. I was sitting there. I was like counting as I'm watching that clip. It's at least 3 dozen interruptions of Ted Cruz in that short clip. By the way, here's the election fraud of 2020. This is not a comprehensive list, but there are dozens, hundreds, thousands of examples of voter fraud in 2020. Yeah. What if we had a real commission on this? How many cases of voter fraud would we have in 2020? Good on you, Ted Cruz, at least for going in the lion's den, I suppose. It's really embarrassing, I guess, to the senator to be talked to that way. Making that watching that made me angry. Although I'm starting to see a trend here. So like yesterday, Bill Maher was mauled by Megyn Kelly over Hillary Clinton not accepting the results of the election. Kristen Welker went after Marco Rubio in the exact same way, the exact same tact. This is how you know that it's all coordinated. This is all centrally coordinated. Every single one of these like ding dongs in these little, they all wear the same neon suit too. They are going after these Republican senators, and they're using the exact same talking points. Kristen Welker did the same thing to Marco Rubio this weekend. So by your own definition, are Donald Trump's claims undermining Americans' confidence in democracy, given that he has not conceded the last election, and he just said in recent days twice that he won Minnesota, Senator?
I think what undermines people's confidence in the election is when you have places like Wisconsin with over 500 illegal drop box locations, when you have places like Georgia where liberal groups are paying people $10 per vote. No, but listen, what undermines elections is when NBC News and every major news outlet in America in 2020 censored the Biden laptop story, which turned out to be true, not Russian misinformation, unprecedented. Only you couldn't even talk about it on social media. They would deplatform you. People look at all this. They look at what happened in Arizona, 200,000 ballots that had the signatures didn't match. Senator, people will lose confidence, and it opens the door to this.
I have to jump in here. Senator, you voted to certify the election, and
because at that stage in the process, you have no options.
Senator, you voted to certify the election. Nothing has been censored on this program. Hillary Clinton
did you guys cover the laptop for Joe Biden in 2020?
Absolutely, we covered the laptop.
It was banned. You couldn't even talk about it in social media.
Chris Krebs, the top election official,
you couldn't talk about it in social media. It'd be deplatformed. You couldn't even.
I can't take it anymore. Who's doing media training here? Why are you allowing yourself to be talked over like this? Why would you allow this? It's degrading to your office. Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. Don't allow this. Like, it's so embarrassing. And then they keep
it was blacked out by the media.
We did cover the election, and just to note that Chris Krebs, who was a top Trump election official, called it the safest and most secure election in recent history. Senator Rubio, we are out of time.
And then they say we're out of time, right? Marco Rubio got the last laugh posting this video that I think sort of buttresses both Ted Cruz and Marco's points there, but Republicans have got to get better media advice. You cannot allow, you should do zero media interviews because you give these people ratings. You should do zero media interviews unless that network agrees that the talent is not going to talk over you or bitch, mule, and snipe at you while you're trying to make a point. That should be like the prerequisite for you talking. Do you think they'd ever do? Do you think they'd ever do anything like that with Joe Biden? Do you think they'd ever dare interrupt Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton, or like try and fact check them live? Marco Rubio shared this video. It was liked by Jason Miller, who's a senior Donald Trump advisor, and I think it makes the point pretty beautifully. Yeah, we don't live in a free country, that's for sure. It's your boy Benny. Enjoy.
That Al Gore won that election. I think he won anyway.
You know it, I know it, they know it. We won that election.
And the only way they could win the election was to stop the voting in Florida.
Troubling evidence of the fact that not every vote was being counted.
Legitimate concerns over the integrity of our elections.
The right to vote has been stolen from qualified voters.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
There is a cloud of illegitimacy around the election of Donald Trump.
If Stacey Abrams doesn't win in Georgia, they stole it.
Without voter suppression, Stacey Abrams would be the governor of Georgia.